What's up everybody and welcome to another edition of AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. And I actually watched this movie a little bit earlier in the week. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the review out until now, but I had a lot of fun with this movie, so this is my official review of Spider-Man Far From Home. Let's take a closer look. Now, before I get started with the actual review, I do have to make a pretty significant pop culture reference and something that completely blew my mind about this movie. I didn't realize that Peter Billingsley, the actor that played Ralphie on one of my favorite films, A Christmas Story, is actually in this film. And what really mesmerized me was the fact that he's actually been part of the MCU for a very long time. He was featured in the original Iron Man film, which completely went over my head, and it's just awesome to know that he's actually part of the MCU. So I guess the burning question for many Marvel fans is what happens now in terms of the phases? What happens in a post-Thanos world? And most importantly, what happens in a post-Tony Stark world? And I think this film addresses and bridges that gap very well. Now, as a critic of the Marvel films, I'm always on the look for continuity issues, and I thought that this movie might have a really big problem addressing some of those issues, but in fact, it's the opposite. They really address it in a very brilliant way. This film really had to figure out a way to normalize not only the elimination of half of the population in the universe, but what happens in the aftermath of when they come back. Now, this movie really does a great job of addressing that issue, and very similar to The Leftovers, it's known as an event called the Blip. They also incorporate a little bit of Einstein's theory of relativity, which I thought was actually pretty clever. Now, I'm going to try to keep this one as nebulous as possible because I think if I go into too much detail, it'll actually spoil the movie, but just know that at this point, Peter Parker is kind of reeling from the fact that he really has to fill the shoes of what Iron Man would have been. Basically, he's taking up that mantle and he's having a little bit of problems with that. Not only is he dealing with the fact that he's missing his mentor, but also what the world is missing because there is no Tony Stark in this world. At the same time, he's just a teenager who wants a normal life, to go out with girls and make romantic situations and have first kisses and stuff like that. And that's very difficult because you have to remember he's still a superhero. This is also the first time we see both Maria Hill and Nick Fury after they have been returned from wherever the hell it was that Thanos sent them, and that's also a very interesting dynamic. And again, I don't want to talk about that too much because it goes into spoilers, but just know that their inclusion in this movie does raise an interesting dynamic. Now, the other thing that was really interesting was how they handled Mysterio, especially how they introduced the elementals. Now, obviously it's going to differ slightly from the comics and people might be a little bit disappointed with that, but nevertheless, I think it was interesting, and definitely with Mysterio, how they handled the update for modern audiences. It was very fascinating, and I think a social commentary on the current paradigm in terms of technology and how we use our social media, especially with this whole thing about fake news. I thought that was very interesting and pretty telling. Of course, Tom Holland as Peter Parker hits the right tone. He's very good in this film, and I think he embraces a little bit more of the characteristics from the comics. I really love the fact that Jake Gyllenhaal does a great job with Mysterio, and he's actually playing two characters here, and I gotta tell you, there's a lot of twists and turns in this movie, so just be on the lookout for that. The growing pains of Peter Parker are fascinating to watch, although I do have to admit the actress that is playing Mary Jane in this film is a little bit stiff. Her dialogue comes off very dry, and unfortunately I simply didn't believe the chemistry between the two, so that kind of failed on several levels. Strangely, the chemistry with other characters in the film, which are supposed to be secondary characters, are much more believable, and I was wondering why the hell they made this decision. But it is a little bit awkward. I don't know if that's intentional, but I think it kind of failed a little bit. The cinematography, the special effects, and the action sequences in this movie are superb. This is a Spider-Man ripped out of the comics. What I like is that they paid a little bit more attention to how he web slings, especially his maneuverability, and how nimble he is. I think it was a perfect recreation of what we have come to love in the comics, and they did an excellent job here. It's frenetic, it's exciting to look at, and it's not sensory overload. You can actually see the motion, which is something that is really cool. Now, Marissa Tomei, just like the previous movies, doesn't get too much screen time, but I absolutely love her as Aunt May. She is smoking hot, and you also have to remember, because of the continuity of the previous films, she now knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, so that introduces a whole new dynamic in their relationship, and I think it works so well here. I love Marissa Tomei. Now, because of the fact that they introduced certain characters and they're definitely going in a very unique direction in terms of the storyline, it raises more questions than answers. And I don't want to go into spoilers again because I don't want to spoil this film for you, but I will say that overall this is a great film. One of the things that I really liked about it is that they switched up the tone a little bit. I think with the heavy material from Avengers Endgame, this is a natural progression of where we want to go in the MCU. It's done so well, the tone is fantastic, and this is a really lighthearted, fun film, and I definitely recommend that you watch it in the movie theater because it is absolutely amazing. Now before I go, I just want to thank F&B Collectibles Incorporated for sponsoring today's video. Alright everybody, so that's my official review on Spider-Man Far From Home. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews.
Well, no, I don't have time. I'm too busy doing your jobs.
Oh!
The world needs the next Iron Man. And I'm just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Thank you for having me.
You got gifts, Parker. The world needs that.
Nick Fury just hijacked our vacation.
Awesome.